Kijun, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll step out, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Chip. I speak to a lot of Microsoft partners and companies overall in general in the ecosystem, and I'll say this: co-selling with Microsoft is a hot topic for many of them today. They are looking to deliver better solutions, working together with Microsoft and scale their revenue growth. And some are, I'd say, early in the journey. They're looking to start out co-selling with Microsoft. Others are already actively doing so, and they're looking to expand, and they're looking for guidance. So very excited about this session with Dan, Megan, and Paul. They're industry and co-sell practitioners, experts, and they'll be sharing their experience and insights with us. So I'll give a quick intro, and we'll get started. Dan leads partner program for Microsoft strategy and digital experience as well for Microsoft's 400,000 plus partners. The ecosystem is growing, hundreds of partners every single day, and looking forward to hearing his insights. Megan leads cloud transformation and cloud alliance for Seek. Seek is a leading partner of Microsoft, providing analytics software for manufacturing and industrial IoT. And prior to that, she was with Microsoft as well for 14 years. Great to have you here, Megan.
Thanks.
And Paul, Azure Client Executive at Rackspace, a top co-sell partner for Microsoft globally. Paul has been a veteran of the co-selling with Microsoft space since 2015. And I've worked with all three in the past. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining.
Thanks
for having us.
I'd love to start with the state of co-selling with Microsoft today, where things are at, and then let's start with you. If you can share more about how partners are co-selling with Microsoft, what co-sell motions that you're seeing, that'd be great.
Great. No, thanks, Kijun. And that's a great starting point. First off, I just want to thank everybody. I know the fatigue of digital events is getting high. We're seeing that in the feedback we're getting on our own partner conference that happens next week. So to have you here means a ton, and to have an opportunity to speak with Seek and Rackspace, two amazing partners that are able to join us today. I actually modified some of my opening commentary just as we started the call based on the poll data that was coming in. Based on the seniority of this audience, my guess is that most of you have had multi-year relationships with Microsoft. You've watched the channel grow from the startup network that we created to what we have now of almost 500,000 organizations that call themselves Microsoft partners today. Many of you probably remember the channel's early stages under the leadership of people like Allison Watson and John Roskell, really during the birth of this concept, the initial concept of certified and silver and gold competency programs, through the creation of Azure, through the transition of our on-premise business, and now to an ecosystem of cloud-first providers and you intellectual property creators. Once we realized the power of the network that we had as a partner-led company, we started to transition our partner group and bring it in core to our commercial business. And so this was like the era of Phil Sorgen, who gave birth to this concept of cooperative selling, where our field was empowered to become an extension of your sales team. As you come forward in the last few years under Gabriella Schuster and Rodney's leadership, I think we heard from Gav in the video just a couple of minutes ago, that's really where we saw the birth of the commercial marketplace, and this reality that most of our partners will leverage their partnership to sell through Microsoft. This is like transactable offers and incentive qualified offers that show up in our public and private storefronts, and that many of our partners will sell proactively with Microsoft in this practice of routine bi-directional lead sharing, engagement, and winning of new opportunities with you. So the key now, when we look at co-selling as we approach FY23, the key becomes co-sell at scale. And that's predicated on three realities. The first, we need to deliver on this promise of leveraging your partnership with us as a mechanism to discover new customers and win new opportunities that create and generate revenue for your business. We have to do that. It is the number one benefit of being our partner that we deliver, and it solidifies a longevity of partnership that lasts years. Number two, we need to respect the reality that sometimes you need our help and sometimes you don't, and we have to provide paths for you equally on that. And so there's ways now where you can request help from Microsoft account executive if we manage that customer, so that you can engage with us, we can come in on a deal with you, and we can help solidify the strength of the deal. And a lot of times you don't actually need that. You're just saying, hey, look, Microsoft, I'm about to close a book of business. We're running this this solution on the technology stack, and you're just seeking credit for it from Microsoft so that we can account for that revenue, and we can give you the credit where credit is due on closing and winning the business. The third thing, we need to get tooling out of the way. If you're co-selling with us at scale, those integrations and workflows need to feel natural for your sellers so they can focus on the deal and not on the mouse clicks. And in this, WorkSpan has really come through with a powerful solution that creates that connective tissue between your organization and ours. And I love that somebody asked the question in the closing comments of Amit's piece, because there is truth. Like, Microsoft created APIs to connect into our partner center ecosystem and to be able to co-sell with us at scale. But to hook into those, you have to pull engineers off your bench to go do a fairly significant amount of work to connect, to hook up to this co-sell connector. And then you've got to maintain it now and in the future. Every time our API data contracts change, every time our validation rules change, you've got to have engineers ready to maintain and sustain that solution in production. Because if you miss a single engagement, that's potentially a multi-million-dollar deal that passes right by your sellers because of some glitch in the connectivity between your systems and ours. And the criticality of the business and the time sensitivity of the business that we see today in this era where digital has become commoditized, you can't afford that, and neither can we. And so having WorkSpan as a partner that helps us overcome those challenges has been really fantastic. And I thank you and the team, Kajun, for that.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Megan, I'd love to hear more about Seek and how Seek has been co-selling with Microsoft.
Sure. And really good opening session, Amit. And I think what we're doing here today is, really critical in building co-selling capability for your company, right? So I think we steal all of our best ideas from other Microsoft partners who've, are larger than us, who've blazed the trail before us. And so having this ecosystem business summit and this chance to learn from one another as a community is by far some of the best way that I spend my time. And I hope that's valuable for all of you as well. So Seek is a startup in scale-up phase. We're an industry ISV. We sell into line of business in the manufacturing industry. And I think that's a unique perspective in some ways for co-sell. So I feel like we're a challenger model on what ISVs and technology partners and SIs think is going to come out of co-sell. And what I mean by that is, so many in the ecosystem thinks that co-sell is really about deeply aligned solution to IT buyers, right? Where we can just get in and repeat that process in areas where both Microsoft and the partner have deep strength of relationship. When we first started our co-sell journey with Microsoft, it was about 3 years ago, so we're still relatively new in that journey. We, got listed in Marketplace with all of the naysayers that said, well, a manufacturing operations leader is not going to go to a cloud commercial marketplace, and sign a multi-year agreement, for Seek, right? This is the sort of feedback that you get when you're embarking. And we really push back on that, taking that challenger mindset to say, absolutely, Microsoft's pivoting the industry. Microsoft has deep expertise and value to bring into a line of business conversation, and we can accelerate that. Who better than us, right, to lead in this space on co-sell? Because to Amit's point, if we start with the customer in mind, we can bring line of business, IT, digital to the table together and bring the value of a partnership to our customer. They want us working across their whole organization to bring solutions to them. So co-sell for us has been a journey. It started with the programs piece, getting that aligned, hiring expertise on the partner side for co-sell, getting into Marketplace, and then driving a repeatable motion with our sales organization. So that's the starting point for co-sell for us.
Megan, I love the challenger mindset that your company and team have had. And it's great seeing the successes as well. Paul, could you share more about Rackspace, how the company co-sells with Microsoft? I know it's been doing so for a number of years.
Sure. We primarily focus on three main areas, right? So we're leveraging incentive and investment programs to drive demand on the pre-sales side. We're also taking advantage of co-sell days through Digital Transformation Academy. Co-sellathon was one that was rather recent. And then really direct seller engagement. So really we're getting into the era of bidirectional lead sharing directly with Microsoft.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Given Rackspace has been co-selling for some time with Microsoft, what would you say are best practices that you've seen, you've implemented within your company?
Well, one thing that we've recently done is rolling out the WorkSpan tool for bidirectional lead sharing. So that helps automate the process. Something gets entered into our CRM, and an opportunity gets created that then automatically gets populated into Microsoft Partner Center. Just eliminates a step and allows us to focus on the additional touch points with either with the customer or with Microsoft. So that's certainly been one. Open dialogue, effectively go into the Microsoft field with opportunities. Microsoft tends to shy away from the phishing expeditions, which I have to admit, probably earlier on in my career, I was a part of those. But you live, you learn, and yeah.
I see. What about your sales team, your AEs? How are they engaged in the co-selling? What stage?
So Rackspace itself is actually going through a transition. My role is that of a client executive specifically for Azure. So think of my involvement with the core teams as them effectively being an extension of that core account team. So similar to how Microsoft has the AE, the ATS, and now Customer Success Manager, Rackspace has done something similar. You have your core account team, and then you have myself with a whole team of technical resources behind the scenes to address the ongoing Azure needs. So the involvement with really around co-sell and partner center, that would all reside under my watch. So as the opportunities get brought up, our team gets engaged, and even kind of running in parallel to us is we have a productivity group for 365 and some of those other related needs.
Got it. Thanks for sharing. Megan, for Seek, what would you say are some best practices that you've observed and you've brought into your company as you've done co-selling for some time? I'm sure you learned quite a lot through the journey.
Yeah, I appreciated the comment about the phishing expeditions. We've seen the not great practices in the past, both when I was at Microsoft and then, as a partner, where, you're just dumping all this stuff in Partner Center, hoping for a callback from, an account exec. That's not efficient for anybody. It really tarnishes your brand as a partner. So you think there's some great comments in the chat window about trust, building trust relationships. That starts from value, right? So we think about if we're going to show up and compete for mind share, with all the other Microsoft partners on the planet, looking for support from an AE or an SSP, we're going to start from a place of value. So when we started our co-selling program, we started on our expansions and renewals business. We have a footprint in the account. We have credibility. We're asking, we're bringing something to the co-sell conversation. Almost all of our early Partner Center opportunities we managed were around renewals and expansions, so that every interaction we started building a brand as a partner who brings value to the Microsoft sellers before we ask for their trust, right, to bring us into new opportunities for us. And so that's a metric we track in terms of how co-sell supports not only accelerated sales cycles, but our expansion opportunities with our existing customers. And then now looking more to your point, Dan, around Microsoft sourced opportunities. So bringing value at every stage, right? And that starts in the flywheel that Amit talked about. Co-innovation. Well, we better add some value to the end customer, that there's a gap in the offering, right? So that the value proposition really sticks together well. In marketing, we don't go into our go-to-market discussions with Microsoft with all of our use cases, all of our scenarios. We look at the sales plays, right? I'm sure many of you do this, and the industry priority scenarios, and we remap all of our value propositions, right, to fit into the go-to-market plan, so that a seller can run with the Microsoft-driven go-to-market, and we're a natural extension of that. They don't really have to learn something net new, and then that goes into co-sell, through that. So I think that best practice just on bringing value at each stage and understanding where we're differentiated, that we have a credible book of business and that we're going to use that as a springboard for new opportunity generation. That was really key. Two other, really important things for us as a smaller startup. We don't want to go build a deal desk. We don't want to go build a huge alliance team, which, we set the stage here. This is about scale up, and we have to enable our frontline sellers that co-sell is a natural motion. And so WorkSpan as a solution is really important for us to do that. Without WorkSpan, right, we're either building our own set of tools. We don't want to do that. I love the analogy of a hub versus a private airport. And then secondly, we don't want to go hire, a huge deal desk, right, to manage this. It has to be part of how we, go to market through our channels and through our frontline sellers. Without solutions like WorkSpan, that feels quite impossible for us because everything's manual. So that, I think, was the second best practice. And then third is, and I don't think that given the seniority of everybody here that's attending, but you really deeply have to, be a continuous learner of where Microsoft is going, right? So who but your team and alliances is going to invest the time to really understand Microsoft's strategy, their programs, their seller incentive comp, and bring that level of value and that understanding back to your organizations. And so that's a key piece of value out of the partnerships team, is like, we really deeply have to be the experts on where Microsoft is headed so that we can enable the rest of our company.
I like your points about starting initially with your book of business, existing accounts, and demonstrating value that way, and then expanding from there. I've talked to partners that some might just want to focus initially on the net new accounts, and that perspective is great. The point about enabling and empowering your sales team, your AEs, to scale, another great point. I've seen other partners think that way as well. They're thinking initially it might be with the core team or co-sell team or alliance team, but they're looking to enable each AE so that they can connect to the Microsoft sellers directly, and that'll speed up the deal cycle and make things more efficient. So, Megan, would you say, if you think about co-selling, are there any examples that you can think of about co-selling with Microsoft that you want to see more of with Microsoft?
Yeah, so we call these the three-pointer deals. We should have launched something like March Madness or the Steph Curry deal or whatever. We kind of need something glitzy around it, but these are our three-pointer deals. And our three-pointer deals for us are SaaS on Azure, co-sell engagement and direct co-sell impact for both Microsoft and Seek, and Marketplace. Right? When we hit all three of those things, that for us is a three-pointer, and we track that, relative to the rest of our deals, and have goals around that. And sometimes you have two-pointer deals, right? A one-pointer deal, great, but we're trying to reinforce this idea that the flywheel really exists when you have Marketplace, when you have partners attached, right? And then you have, for us, a SaaS business model. And so that's been, a learning for us to kind of get that into a repeatable program. Now we've extended it to actually create something we call Seek Fast, which is a repeatable co-sell commercial model. And I'll tell you where the idea came from there. So we had a data and AI SSP in the Northeast from Microsoft challenge us to say, I need your value proposition in a Dixie cup. Right? Like little thimble of information. We all know that we need to radically simplify what the message is for a Microsoft seller. So get it in a Dixie cup, and that is, who am I talking to? What's the value proposition? How does it light up the Microsoft cloud? And how do you sell it, right? And if I can get that in, the elevator pitch, the Dixie cup, then I can help with the new lead generation for Seek. So that's the challenge we took on, and we created a program around it so that all of our sellers had a Dixie cup. We call it FAST. It's got, the 3 bullet points, and sort of we just go at that over and over. So that's been sort of a key way we think about, when we think about scale up, it's not just, tools and process and people. It really is like, what are those repeatable co-sell motions? And that FAST program, Kajun, came off of, our top 5 co-sell deals last year. So we looked at deal review, what are the best practices here? And then how do we create a program out of the best practice? And these are the 3 pointers and the fast deals. And then not to go too long, but to just talk about, one deal in particular. So we had an opportunity. We have our SI attached. We're selling into the line of business. We're seeing some barriers on the IT side, right? Getting line of business and IT aligned. I think many on the call can understand that. We connected with the CTL, the client technology lead, the data and AI SSPs. They have the IT senior relationship. And we built a joint sort of message board, and actually asked Microsoft to go, take this back to the CIO. We kept working, on our OT side, and then we pulled both sides of the customer together for that joint envisioning session. And the reason that was so successful is that our customers want to see the value of our partnerships, right? So again, back to that point of value, they don't. They're to the point about a flywheel. They're looking across the ecosystem. So if we can be working on the customer's behalf in the background and bring that value to them together, that's what makes co-sell success at the best level.
That's fantastic. Dan, you're seeing across many partners. What would you say are some best practices that you're seeing and secret to unlocking the most value out of co-sell partners?
Yeah, great question. And for those of you, if you've been doing this for a while, you know that when we started with co-sell, we had this kind of internal co-sell catalog. We called it the OCP catalog, and we exposed it to our sellers. The leadership team underneath our CEO challenged me 2 or 3 years ago, and he said, "Look, if this is the best stuff built by our brightest partners, why is it not being showcased in our public storefronts in our commercial marketplace?" And we said, "Yeah, you're right. Let's bring the two together. This co-sell catalog and this concept of these storefronts in this commercial marketplace need to be reconciled together." In that, I saw a lot of partners take their existing co-sell business and transition it to kind of this future forward direction that Microsoft had invented. And it required us to take an inventory with a number of our partners who had a very, very large number of SKUs in that co-sell catalog. And it became this kind of big, heavy migration effort, right? A couple of you were probably involved in that for your company. It was this kind of big, arduous thing we went on. It took about 1.5 years. And what I learned on the backside of that and the advice I now give most of our partners is focus on what's working, fix what's not working, and forget about the rest. We had partners that were like, "Hey, I need to move 150 co-sell solutions out of your co-sell catalog into your commercial marketplace." And my starting point is, let's just look at deal volume and win rate against those 150 solutions. And what I found most of the time is say, look, 10% of these are actually driving significant business for you. Another 10 or 15% have the potential. The rest of it, you should just load into a truck and drive off. Not to say they weren't great ideas, not to say they're not valuable solutions, but for this co-sell ecosystem, they're not gaining traction. And so just don't get distracted by the volume of solutions you have. Just really narrowly focus on what's working and drive seller attention across Microsoft with that. On the advice I give for co-sell, I would actually defer to Megan and Paul's advice because I think both of it was really solid, but I would amplify, just get started. If you're new to this, deploy an offer, request assistance from Microsoft on a couple of engagements, register those deals as they come in, and see what works for you, and then repeat it frequently. You'd be shocked. I'm following some of the comments in the chat, and a lot of folks are asking, "Hey, I feel like I need an account manager. How do I get the attention of Microsoft sellers?" They want to find you as badly as you want to find them. The reality is, it's a one-to-many relationship from us to you. And so what they're looking for is that seller really wants to see unique solutions, because when they're in the moment with a customer, right, their first priority, the way our sellers are incented, is, can I bring a partner in on the deal? Question number one. Question number two is, what's the best solution built by a partner that's going to solve this? And so we've that's been a cultural shift, right? We used to co-sell by organization. And so a company would say, or a seller would say, okay, I work with company A routinely. They're reliable, they're trustworthy, they close deals quickly. We've evolved away from that to say, no, in this moment in time, you need to find something that solves the customer's unique challenges. Don't recommend a business name, recommend a solution name, a discrete offer, a skewed offer that will fix what this customer needs either immediately or in a fast win, because that's what the market wants. And so sellers are kind of going through that Rolodex very rapidly to make that connection point with you. And so they need to see immediately what is unique about the solution you've driven. Is it right for this customer's industry, for their technology needs, for their segmentation and services? They're trying to make immediate connection with all of that. And they're flipping through a book that is as big as the Yellow Pages, through a catalog of thousands of solutions trying to find the right one, right? I mean, we've all been there. You need your sink starts to leak and you need a plumber and you're like, which one do I find, right? So somebody invented Angie's List and they try to connect you with a 5-star rated plumber who can solve your leak. And the type of provider you'll get who can fix your lawn irrigation system is very different than the provider you'll get, the one who fixes your leaky faucet. And so that's like, we have all those challenges. And so what we do now in our co-sell ecosystem is try to help you curate your solutions in a way that really enlightens our sellers on what the unique value of that solution is, so that they reliably know that it's going to map to that customer's need. There was also a question in chat that I think answers or is aligned with what you prompted, Kajun, of how do we, like, we're suspicious about co-sell. This is a new kind of culture for our company. Where do we get started? And I think the reality is, like, it's a little bit like speed dating, right? You're all suspicious of each other when you walk in the room because you haven't had the opportunity to establish trust yet. It's not that you mistrust each other. It's that you haven't had a chance to build trust with one another.
Right.
And I think the key is being vulnerable, right? And putting yourself out there and saying, look, let's roll the dice and take a chance. I see a lot of partners come in with concerns and say, I feel like if I bring a new engagement to Microsoft, they're going to poach the deal from me and they're just going to take and service this thing first party. I'll tell you, that doesn't happen. Like it with very low frequency, there are times where Microsoft will intervene and say, hey, we feel like we could probably service this customer better first party. But really our intent is to help you win, is to help you close the deal. And so I think within your organization, creating that culture that says, we may not trust co-sell yet, but we do have to be vulnerable enough to try it. And if we don't open ourselves to that vulnerability, like Brene Brown says, we'll never let the opportunity for trust to become established. And I think that is really key to, like, the culture you need to use to educate your ecosystem and your channel leadership. It's not just about the solutions, it's about the people, because at the end of the day, these engagements are going to get created between people. And the faster and more reliably you can make that connection, everybody wins on that.
Exactly. That's great advice, and the perspective on how to build trust, that's key. Thanks for sharing that. Now, if we look at in this co-sell journey, there might be hurdles and challenges along the way. And Paul, from Rackspace's perspective, what hurdle would you say you faced and how did you overcome it?
You know, I think it's important to point out the elephant in the room, right? Rebuilding brand awareness. Rackspace is transitioning. We're a different company. You know, I think my main priority is really re-educating the Microsoft field around, you know, we're no longer a competitor, right? Yeah, that you know, managed hosting colo service is still there, but it's not as much of a focus of our business. We're now a services organization, right? You can almost look at our Azure offerings as really being a bunch of you know, boutique service partners all under one umbrella. I certainly think that ties into the value proposition. So again, starting small, you know, drop by drop, and really re-educating the Microsoft field.
I think Rackspace has done a terrific job in transforming the business model and how it's perceived in the market. Megan, how about for Seek?
So many challenges, right? There's no relationship on Earth, right? that doesn't have learning opportunities, right?
Right, exactly.
But a couple of things. I think one is always alignment, right? So, where there's friction, it's usually a lack of alignment, right? So, we're selling to different, parts of an organization. Is there any perceived competitive overlap, right? With a service, and for Seek, there's not a lot of overlap with Microsoft services, but sometimes there's FUD that gets in our way around potential overlap, so that a seller has confidence. So you have to overcome that. And then I think for us, and this may be, really interesting as the evolution of this whole wave over the last, decade or plus around like influenced revenue, right? So that's always been a challenge in the ecosystem of, if you're not spinning the meters on a particular, service, but you're deeply influencing the customer's, purchase of that set of technologies, how do you account for that? And Microsoft's, gone a long way to sort of wrap their arms around this influence revenue model. But for Seek, one of our challenges is, and still a challenge, is that we don't drive, a ton of Azure consumed revenue in the first, 90 days of an engagement. It's we're going to drive that over time. And so you really have to, have a shared strategy with the sales organization that says, here's the short-term leading indicators that this is working, that our co-sell, collaboration is going to be good for both Microsoft and for Seek, ultimately for the customer. But also you have to go on a journey with us, right? It's a land and expand motion. We're going to be on a journey together. And, some sellers really, get that, and we can move really fast to make that happen. And others, it's, we're just not the SAP migration, workload, and wow, like this big, exciting, opportunity that's sort of a big bang in the next quarter. It's a land and expand, so it's going to take time. So I think in kind of co-sell, it's about alignment, it's about focus. I also think, if you're two large organizations coming together, kind of if you're a global SI working with Microsoft, how are you heat mapping that relationship to get really clear deliverables and focus? And then for a smaller technology partner like us, in the early days of co-sell, we'd almost do anything, we'd be like, we're so excited to be, attached to this service, or, in this go to market or whatever. And I sort of encourage that in the first year, just get the learning, sort of take every opportunity. But then over time, you really have to get focused, because you can waste a lot of cycles, right, on things that really don't drive the needle. And for us, we found that, starts with the end customer. What's our heat map? What are the key winning, scenarios and sales plays where we know our win rate is high, where we have very differentiated value, which geos, which industry, which segment, which sales play. And we've heat mapped, and, we went from about 30 that we thought about, and we really have about 6 or 7 now. So that's been a learning across that journey. But some of the frustrations have led to that. So, bring them on, and then we'll, tackle them and move on to the next. The other thing I would just quickly say, coming back to this forum, is learn from others, right? I mentioned it earlier, right? But you don't have to learn all of this on your own. To the point, and I think my friend Vince Menzione, who runs an amazing podcast on Ultimate Guide to Partnerships, is on the line. Those kind of resources from WorkSpan, from experts like Vince, from the community, from Inspire, from Women in Cloud, who's having a session tomorrow. Steal. So just really practically, I look at ISVs that are about 3 to 4 years ahead of us from a scale up revenue, growth perspective. I follow their alliance leaders. I read every single press release they put out. I look at any single customer video they do, and I use that as a roadmap for our own organization to say, what are these, organizations that are bigger, larger, further along doing? And let's just take from the playbook and do everything we can to accelerate our path there. So definitely leverage the community.
Yeah, makes sense. Dan, this transition to Microsoft Cloud Partner Program, it's a major change. So could you share more about how this will impact co-selling with Microsoft for partners?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one. So most of you have probably heard the announcements that we started to release back in March. and then we'll give more clarity on this next week during Inspire. But we are transitioning from a decade and a half ecosystem of silver and gold competency, and we're moving now to a simplified structure that aligns our services partners by solution area. Microsoft operates in 6 commercial solution areas, and we'll be accrediting partners with a market designation by solution area. Our specializations, what you previously knew as advanced specializations, all stay intact, so no major change there. But that really is the future of bringing together our partner programs and co-sell. There was a great question in the chat from Caroline who asked, how does Microsoft reconcile its programmatic designations with its co-sell ecosystem? And that's where we move forward together. Is before, like, silver and gold competency status was kind of loosely coupled to your ability to become co-sell ready or to get any kind of upper tier status in our co-sell ecosystem. Now it's entirely predicated on the solution areas that you focus on and the specializations that you pick up, because that intersection is where your capabilities as a business, as a company, which are really what competencies were and these new solution partner designations are, and the solution plays or sales plays that your core offers align into. When those two things intersect, we have a perfect storm for co-sell, because we know you've delivered an incredibly powerful solution in the market, and you've aligned that solution to 1 or 2 or 3 named sales plays so that we can feed and recommend that solution to our field sellers. We also know this is core to your business, right? I mean, it's like we've all kind of watched Tesla and it deploy the Model S, the Model 3, and the Cybertruck. Very different solutions received in market in very different ways. Some of them tremendously successful. Tesla is no doubt a tremendously successful automobile manufacturer, but those solutions have kind of hit the market with a different presence. And so we look at that in the same way, where we want to see the alignment of your organization's core capabilities and the solutions you bring to market. Not to say you shouldn't invest in new areas. We love to see R&D and net new growth areas for our partners, but we're trying to bring together and say, okay, you are functionally competent in this area. This is core to the strengths of your company, and you have one or multiple solutions in market that align with that. We know that we can reliably sell with you. So when we bring new engagements, you have a field sales team, a global sales team ready to receive that. You have business practices around it. We abide by the same standards of business conduct. And so that's where the program goes. This new cloud partner program, the number one benefit that I can deliver to the channel, to 500,000 partner organizations worldwide, is bringing new business and new customer discovery to your doorstep. I can save you a little bit of money with program benefits, and like everybody knows, there's a silver benefit kit and a gold benefit kit. We're not going to interrupt those. We're actually going to leave those in place. Every partner who has those silver and gold benefits today will be eligible to renew them in the years to come. But what we're really trying to anchor to is to help bring new knocking to your door of customers that are ready to buy. Because when I can bring $1 million deal to your front doorstep that wouldn't have otherwise been there if this partnership never existed, that's where we really create tenacity and durability in the relationship, and that's what we seek to do with the partner program. Things that of interest, of all the sessions we're running at Inspire next week, the new cloud partner program and our co-sell future are some of the top most desired pieces of content that we'll talk about. Our registrants are asking for that content, and we're going to talk very deeply about it next week during the show. But this is a change for us. This is our ability to really ladder in the structure of our partner program to the motion that is co-sell, so that we can feed that to our sellers and say, hey, look, it's an easier process for you to discover solutions that are custom fit and well tailored to your customer's need. And then to bring that business to the partner and say, let's ink a deal together on that. So you'll see that coming this year.
That's terrific. Thank you, Dan. Sounds like partners, they'll be able to get more value out of the co-sell partnership if done well, if done per the guidance.
That's the key piece. I think I love that you said if done well, right? I mean, that I spent most of my life between Boston and Seattle. And I kind of saw the way 2 urban planners laid out the cities, right? One of them thought through mass transit before the city really took off. And one of them tried to deal with mass transit after the city was already well established. That's what I would recommend. Figure out scale now. Like, don't figure out scale when scale becomes a problem. Figure out scale when it's not a problem for you yet. And lay that subway system, that mass transit system, underneath the infrastructure of your organization as early as you can. Even if you're closing, one deal a week with us or less, start to create that pipeline to put those capabilities in place and then watch it grow, because that growth happens so much faster when you have scale in place, when you start thinking big early and then you let big arrive when it's ready. And I've seen our most successful co-sell players do that, putting those capabilities in place and then telling Microsoft, look, we've done everything we need to sell with you either regionally or globally. We have some amazing solutions in market. Let's hit the go button on this as fast as we can. And so I think if there's one piece of standing advice I could give to this audience, especially if you're kind of early stage in the early days of co-sell, make that investment. And WorkSpan is a tremendous mechanism to create that mass transit system for your organization now. Let it be the bridge that carries that traffic for you. You don't need to figure this out on your own.
I love that advice and the analogy. Be Seattle, not Boston. But no, great advice. Now, you spoke about technology and WorkSpan. Megan, from your perspective, when you look at co-sell, what would you say are the core technology solutions that you think partners should have to do this effectively?
Yeah. For us, it's three, right? Three sort of parts of the co-sell tech stack, if you want to think about it that way. Maybe it will grow over time. I'm interested in comments from attendees on how they've made investments here. But there's really three. So WorkSpan being at the pivotal part of this. WorkSpan is, we think about exactly the point that Dan just made around how do we go from dozens to hundreds to thousands of co-sell opportunities that we're managing, right? So we're in the hundreds planning for thousands now before that becomes a reality, or to enable that. So WorkSpan first, and I'll just reiterate going back to that idea that's come up throughout this, which is the closer we can push the frontline seller to seller relationship, and the technology's becoming an enabler to do that, that's a huge investment for us, right? That we think pays the ROI. The second part of our co-sell tech stack is around marketplace. So we've invested in marketplace SaaS solutions so that we can create private offers for marketplace from our CRM system. That's phenomenal for us. Again, that enables our customer success managers, our sales organization to create private offers without going to a deal desk, right? And then, going into partner center, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been a key piece, part of that flywheel. And then the third one is really around content. And so it's my view that, if there are sales enablement materials and content, that bill of materials that sellers need, if it's not, we send people to the marketplace first, so that picks up, in terms of sellers, right? So picking up what Dan said, right? We don't have to upload to an OCP catalog anymore, et cetera. Let's keep marketplace as a destination that Microsoft sellers will lean on. But then secondly, the part of that tech stack is, okay, they want to know about wins. They want to know about use case materials. And some of that is a larger, set of marketing materials. So we, you think about that in terms of a portal, and yet, a Microsoft seller is not going to go learn a bunch of portals, right? So how do we serve that up in the easiest possible way at the right time with the right SSP at the right point in the opportunity? I wouldn't say we're fully there yet, but that would be the third part of the tech stack for us. So opportunity management, marketplace management, and then that material set of content management that gets the right slide with the right customer story to the right rep at the right time, so that they're not, we're not offline trying to make that happen through email.
That makes sense. Paul, how about for Rackspace? From a technology enabler perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the main tool that I was a part of the rollout of was effectively WorkSpan. I mean, we just use that to integrate with Partner Center, and kind of our initial intake is Salesforce as our CRM. So
yeah, great. So as we wrap up, love to go around and see what final advice you have for partners listening in they might be starting this co-sell journey or looking to expand. Dan, can we start with you?
Yeah. If for many of you have your own partner programs, and you probably do what we do, where you look at you look at your addressable market, you look at incoming global customer demand, and you figure out, if we're going to scale through partner, do we have enough partners in each workload to be able to service global customer demand, especially if you're a partner-led, partner-first company. That is the key for us. Like, if you look at when we launch new specializations, when we launch new programmatic offers, effectively what we're signaling to the market is we need partner capacity against these workloads, because number one, we can't do this internally first party. And number two, we probably don't have enough partners in the market to service the amount of demand that's coming in. And so we're telling the market, hey, we need you to build this capability, whether you're an ISV building intellectual property or you're a services partner building consulting and managed service practices. We're effectively telling you we need to create more partner capacity against these workloads because we have too much demand coming in. We can't service it ourselves, and the existing partners we don't have enough scale. And so watch Microsoft really close on that. Look at what we did last year and the specializations that we deployed, and look at what we're going to do this year and the specializations we continue to deploy, those areas that we're investing in, and those areas we begin to divest in. Because what we're trying to do is to signal to you, this is where we need you to plug into the socket. We have a pipeline of sales capacity coming into this, and the wire that's servicing that is too thin. And we need to bulk up the throughput of that wire. And the only way Microsoft do that is through you, our partners. And so when you're looking at new practice development or new IP creation and R&D, that'll give you the best starting point. Is to say, look, we have an amazing team of engineers. We can go do a bunch of stuff, but we need to pick something. And we need to pick something in an area where Microsoft has an abundance of capacity that's not being serviced.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't need an account rep. You don't need a PDM. It helps a little bit. But really, if you're astutely looking at the collateral that Microsoft is deploying across partner.microsoft.com and the changes you see coming in Partner Center, these new programs represent these areas of investment that we're going after. You'll see this year. We're going to be announcing some ISV depth programs for our well-established technology providers. We just went to private preview with the ISV Success Program at Microsoft.com/ISV. For our consulting and managed service partners, you're seeing us now transition from the silver and gold competency ecosystem to this simplified version of solution area and solution partner designations. That is the way we will go to sell and market and go to market with you. So however you can plug into that socket faster, whether you've got an established business or an established piece of IP, or you're just kind of emerging and you're in the dark rooms of research and development trying to figure out what to do next, those programmatic motions are the signal that'll lead you on where to go with us.
It's great advice. Thank you, Dan. Megan, how about from your side? Any parting advice? I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Going back to Amit's, opening remarks, the flywheel around co-innovation, go-to-market, co-sell, you really have to make investments across all of those, right? Mm-hmm. So for co-innovation, we keep it quite simple. We have always one big bet with Microsoft, meaning an established set of Microsoft technologies that we can take anywhere around the globe to any customers. It's well established. Our value there is established. And then we make one bet, right? Where, to Dan's point, there's an emerging set of capabilities. There's not a lot of partners playing in that space yet. And we can take a bet with Microsoft to help them go build a market, which, as a smaller ISV, all the time you're looking for ways to kind of punch above your weight. Right? How do we punch above our weight to just get traction and just to build that set of capabilities? So we do the one big bet on co-innovation, which is sort of a sure thing, and we can get repeatable, sales motion around it. And then one bet on an emerging technology to close the gap with Microsoft. And we've seen a lot of new lead generation from the bets, right? Because fewer partners, we're clearly filling a gap, and we can go to market that way. So co-innovation on the go-to-market side, absolutely just line up with the solutions in the sales plays, right? Pick a few, line it up, do the mapping, make sure that that's in a Dixie cup, simplify that. And then on co-sell, and I've seen quite a bit of this in the comments, track this relentlessly, right? So, and then educate your own organization. So that's maybe something that hasn't come up so far in this discussion. We pushed for time in our quarterly board meetings for co-sell. While we've been here, my amazing and small team is doing a session for our entire company. It's really important that a developer at our company knows why we have a partnership with Microsoft. So when we need them to really, lean in on this, connector to an Azure service, they know the why and they know the business impact and the customer impact. So that's education at the board level, at the leadership team level, and that never stops. They're always going to question, right? Why partnerships? Why not just direct to customer? And so I think the more you're on that, education internally at all levels, it helps people lean in with you and make those bets. So on co-sell, keep the KPIs, front and center, measure progress, educate your organization, and then tell the wins, right? So celebrate the success, tell those win stories internally as much as you can, and so that others are going to jump into the boat with you to help you drive the scale up.
That's terrific. Thank you, Megan. Paul, any last advice from your side?
When I heard this question, I thought about a conversation I have pretty frequently with one of my team members, and he always refers to it as priming the pump. And really, what are we priming the pump with? I think the trust analogy, earlier was very relevant, and drops and buckets, right? So leverage the incentive and the investment programs to get a win under the belt with something small. That not only builds trust with the end customer, also builds trust with the Microsoft teams, and let it grow from there.
Great. Dan, Megan, Paul, this was such a rich, insightful discussion. I think the audience listening in got a lot of actionable advice from you all on co-selling with Microsoft. So thank you for sharing about your experiences and insights. Really appreciate this. Love the discussion.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Likewise. Thanks all.
Chip, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Gosh, it's been fantastic discussion and listening on the sidelines. Everyone's contributed so much great advice and ideas. We've had actually a ton of questions come in on the chat as well. So why don't we just dive right into a couple of those. So I think one is, so this is a good one from Jamie, and maybe for Dan. I think we talked about some of these things, but how do you build or actually for anybody, how do you build a value proposition partnering with Microsoft?
I'd love to defer the initial on this to Megan or to Paul.
And Paul, how do you read this? I'm trying to understand if it's internally the value of partnering with Microsoft or to the end customer. How do you read it, Chip? I think
probably to Microsoft, but you also talked about internally as well. It's important to position that as well. But I think it's my read is, how do you get the attention of Microsoft in the field?
I'll be short on this one, because you have to be short in conveying this to a Microsoft seller.
Dixie cup.
Yeah, exactly. We open doors to line of business buyers that are not talking to Microsoft today. We open and create opportunity for the Microsoft cloud for some dark to cloud data that is not in the cloud today, that can come to the cloud, such that we can help the customer in digital transformation. So that's all white space, even for, in our case, Microsoft accounts where they're well established in the account and many other parts of the account. So new buyers, new data types, new opportunities to add value. And then third is fast, right? So fast time to value, fast momentum within a customer, that can lead to expansion. So, and then it delves into, by the seller role, how they're working particularly with the customer. But that's typically for us, new buyer, new types of, revenue opportunity on the Microsoft side. And then as a, packaged software offering, the ability to get a customer started fast and to deliver value quickly.
I like the way you had positioned this, Megan, with like kind of creating a bite-size bill of material that you can hand to the sellers. And like I see partners make this mistake a lot where, so if you don't know this, Microsoft has the public storefronts, our AppSource and Azure Marketplace. There's an internal view of that our sellers can see where we expose a little bit more metadata to them that's like relevant for them making connections in customer buying scenarios that it really just isn't relevant to the public. But what you can do as a partner is you can create a unique bill of material for our sellers. And I see some partners take their public bill of material and just regurgitate it there. I had one the other day. They had a 38-slide PowerPoint and a 52-page PDF that was the seller bill of material. And I gave them a reality check. And I said, if you think our sellers have the time to go through this, to deeply understand your solution, you've packaged this the wrong way. Like you need to recreate this for an internal audience. And there was kind of this rebuttal, like, well, your sellers have a low attention span. I said, no, our sellers are starved for time. And by the way, our customers are starved for time too. So the more you can consolidate that and create that very appropriate bill of material for the seller that shows the value of what you created and the scenarios it's applicable to, both by industry, by customer segment, by geo, giving them that in this Dixie cup size kind of snapshot is really hard to do, but when it's done right, it can be really impactful.
Great answers. And actually, I'm going to put this up because Guy is in the audience, and he actually answered his own version of the question, which I think is really good. So it's Azure, Azure consumption, marketplace transactions, and then vertical market solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
I jump in to say that last line is fantastic, right? So how can a customer reinvest, right, based on business value achieved to drive further into the cloud journey? So I think that's a great one too, Guy.
Thank you, Guy. Let's see. How do I? Let's see. Who else do we have? We had a question from Corey. The focus of the ecosystem is gradually shifting from having just marketplace listening to co-selling. What's your advice for ISVs and how they should partner with Microsoft beyond marketplaces?
That's a good one. Actually, I think WorkSpan's model comes front and center of this of it. Whether you're a startup ISV or a well-established technology provider, if you're not already seeking relationships with services partners who can deploy and support your solutions, you're missing a huge opportunity to create that connection. So I think like the best co-sell, especially for ISVs, is a three-legged stool. It's you, it's Microsoft, and it's the SI community that can deploy, integrate, and support your solutions at scale. And when we know that there's that connection, we have a couple of big ISVs that do this really well with our services partners today. You start to create a reputation and a name for being able to go to market faster because that services partner community holds you up, that SI community holds you up, and they can get you a lot more attention on a super interesting and innovative piece of intellectual property that may still be new to market and may be kind of like Microsoft maybe learning about this for the first time. But those partners can help bring you in on deals and exposure that you wouldn't have traditionally had. So forge and broker those relationships early. Use WorkSpan as the P2P. I guess in this case, it's P2P2P or M to P2P relationship that you can build, and that will open up doorways for seller attention early in the life cycle of your solution or even your business that you may not have otherwise found on your own.
P2P is a whole other topic. We could spend a whole session on that, right? Good. Thank you, Dan. Here's an interesting one. I think it's probably for Dan also. So hyperscalers were once building up their own application stack on top of cloud services. How should ISVs now perceive cloud hyperscalers?
Yeah, this is a really hard question. I was actually going to try to direct this at Paul initially, just because of the journey that you guys have been on. I know
that's a good point. Paul, what do you think of that?
Well, I initially interpreted this question as more directed towards ISVs, but I could see how, all right, hyperscalers are once building their own application stacks on top of cloud services.
I think one of the things that's interesting, Paul, with your story, with the Rackspace story, is that, there was a time when Rackspace was seen, kind of more competitive, and now that's not the case at all, right? You're helping to drive workloads.
Right. How should ISVs perceive cloud hyperscalers? I don't know. To me, just thinking right off the cuff here, I think it really needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis. I mean, again, that's an ocean liner that we're trying to move every day, right? Drop by drop, step by step, just trying to really pivot as a move towards really, a boutique services organization with global reach. So, from our end, we're not competing, but we're effectively partnering with all the hyperscalers now.
Yeah, I might add on to that, Paul, too. You're in a better position as a partner than you are if you're not a partner, right? Meaning that you have an opportunity to kind of more deeply understand Microsoft's strategy, how they're bringing innovation and applications to market, so that you can plan for, manage, mitigate risk in your own organization for areas of overlap. So I think if you have a front row seat as a partner versus being on the outside looking in, that's something to think about. Secondly, there's always going to be some overlap, right? There are some solutions where you may be directly competing, and frankly, we've seen Microsoft open up on that over the last, in the Satya era, right, of co-opetition, and it doesn't negate the opportunity to co-sell, with certain teams at Microsoft that are aligned. Maybe it may have more friction, but that's not necessarily off the table. And then if there's overlap, then you look for, how are you pivoting to where you have the differentiated value on top of or in addition to those applications, right? So nothing new. I'm not saying anything that's not sort of obvious, but Microsoft's going to innovate. They're going to build out an application set of stacks. They're going to, meet customer needs. And so as they evolve, so does the rest of the ecosystem, and vice versa, right? As we build R&D, we need to think about how it maps to Microsoft's strategy. So in that question, how should ISVs think about applications? And some cases I say bring it on, because, they're trying to build markets that hopefully as ISVs we can take advantage of at scale. And then secondly, partner and understand, as much as you can what the strategy is, so that your differentiated value may change over time, but you always, are addressing a gap in the current offering.
Can I plug too? I know Vince has been on with us this morning, and he's part of the CXO panel at a Women in Cloud event that's happening actually tomorrow, I think. And this is a deep dive topic there. I can put the link, Chip. I'll post the link to you, and if you want to reshare it in chat. But yeah, well, like in that event, you'll hear Gina Jorgensen was one of the original founders of Microsoft's commercial marketplace. Jen Tomlinson was core to our GTM team for a long time, and they're going to go deep on this. It's a good forum to learn more.
Awesome.
I might add one very quick thing here. I think if you look at the end customer as the center, they will prefer solutions that come from you, that come from Microsoft, and they're the ultimate decision makers here. So when you think of that formation of how do we reduce risk, give more value back to the customer, I think co-opetition and competition kind of solves that problem in a way. And to Paul's point, in this co-sell opportunity, how are we collaborating to win together? And in many other cases, you may compete, and that's also okay, because it's in the service of the end customer, because of whatever reason they're getting into that situation. The other one is to avoid this as a pattern, right? If you keep competing again and again, it becomes like, hey, we are competing. I think the joint solution process solves that problem a little bit upstream before you meet in the market. So think of a joint solution as, yeah, these are the links. This is a joint solution where a value prop, a win-win value prop has already been established. And there's carte blanche around positioning it, selling it, and so on and so forth. So I think in both these cases, downstream on a customer, when you look at the customer as the North Star, and upstream with the joint solution, those are good ways to look at competition in the market.
Terrific, Amit. We do have a couple more questions. I think we got a little bit of time here still. I think this one's probably from Megan and Paul. How has Microsoft's existing customer base, sales team, and partner network helped your organization grow? Do you quantify it beyond just immediate revenue? That's a good question. Thank you, Corey.
For us, we measure the percentage of our ARR that's coming from co-sell, percentage of ARR from marketplace. How is that changing over time? And is it growing faster than our non-co-sell book of business? So the way we think about the impact of kind of Microsoft and their leads to us and leveraging all the activities around co-sell, is it a growth driver for us? So it has to be growing faster than what we're able to achieve in a non-co-sell fashion, right? So maybe that's a way, there's other metrics behind it, but that's a way we've simplified it, which is co-sell as a percentage of our overall book of business needs to grow, and then needs to grow faster than our non-co-sell business for us to say, with credibility to our board, that there is a return here, and that as we scale up, we can leverage that higher level growth, right? In a significant way over the coming years. That gives us a nice model on short term, right? What's the quarterly results? What's the number of deals? What's the sales cycle timing? But also long term, because if we can show the growth acceleration from co-sell, that allows us to get more investments over time to say, oh, okay, yeah, we want to feed fuel into this co-sell effort because we see this, the scale up, that's going to grow faster than other paths to market.
Great, thanks, Megan. Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, so we track total contract value from a revenue perspective. I believe that's how it's measured in Partner Center, and although Rackspace does have a large number of customers in general, again, anytime we identify something and we're able to communicate that with the respective account teams, it always, in most cases, it ends up opening up additional doors with, hey, you guys might be able to assist us here. So yeah, I think that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, great. So maybe last question, and this one is, I'm actually going to direct this one to, it's going to me, but I'm going to direct it to Amit. So does your co-sell module have a functionality such as pool with multi layers where all stakeholders, system integrators and solution providers work jointly in the same opportunity with individual tasks? So I know the answer is yes, but Amit, you want to chime in?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. What happens in any object in WorkSpan, if it's a joint co-sell opportunity, for instance, is you can add 2 companies to it, you can add 3, you can add 4. So depends on how many partners you're co-selling with. And then you can direct that individual tasks to people within the co-sell opportunity who may be from a third company, for example. And there are 3 other interesting things here. One is the third partner can also add their data to it, which is connect their CRM to it. The more important piece here is, though, they can maintain their own data privacy as they want, as they contribute and participate in a co-sell network. And the other piece is they can also add their own business actions. So let's say somebody's playing a different kind of role. For example, their business action could be to start a services project, right? So they can put a relevant action called start a business services project from an opportunity. Whereas yours could be just simply to accept the lead or the inbound opportunity or not. So depending on what roles people play, they can also define their actions on a given object. So I think these are some ways in which we're learning. I would say it is still early days with partner to partner. We're learning a lot as we look into these three-way patterns and create some new innovation as to how companies can at scale then do this together.
Fantastic. Gosh, this has been amazing. Thank you all for joining and sharing. What a great session. This has been great learning we've had, and thank you all for joining the audience as well, because we've had great questions and conversations going on during the session. So gosh, thank you so much. So we're
Yeah,
gonna
indeed. A quick word of thanks from my side as well. What a terrific session. Megan, to your point, learning from each other, steal, and especially with so many people around different stages of the partnering co-sell journey, there's so much to learn from each other. And Paul, from your point of view, kind of the insights that you shared, very practical, something that everybody can take to. And Dan, what a great collaboration with you. You've championed the not just the use of WorkSpan, but in general, co-sell in the entire ecosystem world. And I think partners are much better for it. And you've shared your insights and your guidance to WorkSpan very well. So our entire team is very, very thankful. And Kijun, thanks for inspiring the team and our larger ecosystem around Microsoft and hyperscalers. So thank you for this session.